Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Welcome back to this episode of the OT is In. Today, we welcome Rachel Tidd, an innovative educator and author renowned for her groundbreaking approach to learning through nature. Rachel has developed curricula like Wild Math and Wild Reading that I, your host Sarah Collins, have been recommending to families for years because of their hands-on and outdoor-centric methodology. Rachel's journey into outdoor learning began when her own sensory-seeking child thrived in an all-outdoor forest preschool. Seeing the profound impact that the environment had on her child, Rachel set out to create a curriculum that combines the basics of subjects like math and reading with the enriching context of the outdoors. In our conversation, we answer the questions: how does the outdoor environment benefit children's attention, engagement, and overall development? We answer, what are some strategies for encouraging children to engage in outdoor activities, especially if they resist due to fear or discomfort? How do outdoor learning experiences help with developing children's executive functioning, decision-making skills? And how can parents and educators overcome our personal challenges with being outdoors to support children learning in nature? So whether you're an educator, a parent, or simply curious about alternative learning environments, this episode promises to inspire you with practical ideas for taking your teaching or homeschooling beyond the classroom walls to an expansive, engaging world outside. Thanks for being here, and on with the show. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. My name is Sarah Collins, and I have with me today Rachel Tidd, who has written curriculum that I've been referring families to for actually years because of the hands-on approach and how it's outdoors. But I want to hear and let her explain a lot more about it for you. So first, Rachel, can you just introduce yourself, your background, and how it came to be what you do?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Rachel Tidd, and I'm the author of Wild Math, Wild Reading, and the book Wild Learning: Practical Ideas to Bring Teaching Outdoors. And I'm super excited to be here talking about my favorite things, which is taking learning outdoors. So it all started, believe it or not, in preschool, so quite a while now. Not my preschool years, but my kids' preschool years. And both of my kids attended an all-outdoor forest preschool here where we live, and both thrived in that environment for they're really different kids, and they both really thrived. But it was my youngest who had a lot of sensory issues, and we were really struggling with those. He was a sensory seeker, and he needed a lot of input, a lot of physical touch, a lot of over everything.
Oh, you're speaking my language here.
Yes, and we were really struggling. And so I went to have him. I'm a former special education teacher, I should say that. And so I knew
Like
the
what you were looking at,
might
right?
be, and that he could probably use some support in from OT. So we had him evaluated by the school district, and he did end up qualifying. When I went to the teachers, because when you get kids evaluated, there's things teachers need to fill out. They were really shocked because they weren't seeing that behavior. And what we, through that process of evaluation, is that outdoor environment was meeting all of his sensory needs.
Yep.
And so that really was a traditional public school special ed teacher, elementary. And that really made me think about it. Whoa, this kid's needs are being completely met outdoors. Not to say every kid's needs are going to be met outdoors, but this kid's needs are. And they're not seeing any issues with him. And yet we're struggling at home. Body has become the sensory input vehicle. And you can't stay in preschool forever. It's a problem. It would be lovely if
We do tend to get older.
I could see that was coming. And I could not imagine putting that child whose complete sensory needs were met outside to our local school indoors all day long in a very small classroom. They had very small classrooms in that school. And then we'd have to deal with a sensory diet and all of these modifications so that he would be able to learn. And I was just like, wait a minute. And my eldest was already homeschooling. And so I was like, I've got to figure this out. How am I going to teach this child math and reading, the basics, and meet his needs and be outside? It just made sense. And so I just started trying things. And for some reason, I started with math and it just seemed easier. It's more hand like manipulatives and stuff.
Yeah.
And people kept asking me to write it down. And eventually I did. And from there, it just took off. And then that same child struggles with dyslexia. And that led me down to like structured literacy and teaching reading. And of course, I have to do it outside.
Outside.
And you don't have to do everything outside. It's just the way, and not everything has to be done, even in
So there's a few things that
yeah,
I'd like to go back and unpack. First
a
of all, I
lot.
feel yeah that we could go in so many different
I
directions.
know.
But I also think like you and I mean our boys sound so very similar. So there's something called the social theory of disability. I don't Okay, so the social theory of disability is thinking about how the environment actually plays a role in how disabled or not a person is. So, for
Right,
example, when he was outside, he wasn't struggling in what he needed and wanted to do. Like that, what you said, where the teachers weren't seeing the same things that you were experiencing at home. So you went to the almost the environment of least resistance, right? You're like, this is where he needs to be, which is beautiful that you were able to figure that out and then be like, cool, I'm equipped. Like I can make this
right.
happen. So can you describe a little bit more, like when you're saying he was a sensory seeker in that way, can you describe like some of the things that you were seeing at home? Because there might be other parents who were seeing the same things.
Yeah, every touch is more intense. It's got more pressure. He's jumping on you and not realizing he's hurting you. And
Yeah.
he had swings and climbing things and crash pads, big pillow like giant things that they can jump on in our house. We lived out in the woods. We had a lot of space to move. He had to move.
Yeah.
We had to get a lot of loved squeezing, loved tight clothes. Can't he didn't necessarily, it wasn't like he was like driven by a motor or lacked attention. It was just like he need constant input. Loved anything with texture, anything gooey, anything shaving cream, all of the things,
Yeah.
mud, covered, paint, everything. He would eat everything. He shoved everything in his mouth. It was the whole
I
thing.
love this. You might have heard me giggling a little bit because I literally used to have, once my son moved out of his crib, I would move that crib mattress from room to room because he would just jump onto it all day long
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
wherever he was, just crashing. And I'd be like, this is the only way that I can give him what he needs. Now, I
So
do
it's
want to say that crashing can be regulating, right?
yes,
Not that a person is
absolutely.
seeking that, but more, oh my gosh, if you think about when you hit your arm and you grab it first because it's sending calming messages. So for any parents who are out there that are thinking this and you're like, wait, is my son sensory seeking that way? Or is he trying to calm his body? Is he trying to elevate or calm down? And Rachel, I love when you mentioned it's not just that he was crashing into you, but more that he also wanted to put mud all over himself and like what he was wearing and what he was touching and what he was eating, all of these things.
Lots
It
of,
was across the board.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, love that.
Especially
So,
though he's almost 12 and it's not, we've learned to regulate and seek those different ways and it's not,
yep. Yeah, same thing. And that's why my son is a hockey player. We were just mentioning about
Yes.
this because he still needed that same amount of speed and the crushing and the heavy pads and all of that. And there are a lot of parents who have asked me in the past, are they going to grow out of this? And what I'll say is, no, you grow into it. Like you do, especially, what you're saying too, like you figured out the environment to meet his needs. And that is such a beautiful part of homeschooling, of that we can do this. All right, now that we've unpacked a little bit, tell us how. Okay, so you're like, I've got to figure this out outside. So what does that look like? What would a day at that point in like kindergarten, first grade, what would that look like?
Yeah, so kindergarten, first grade is such a lovely
So
time.
great, right?
Yeah, and so I really usually only recommend like direct, what you would call like teaching schooly things,
Mhm.
because I'm a real big advocate of play. And we have a few things that we need to work on. So I usually recommend 15 to 20 minutes a
Yeah,
couple times a week. And it's really about consistency. It's more that you keep doing it versus sticking to a plan. I don't know, or doing it for 2 weeks and then not doing it all. That's
right.
not in lots of games. And so it might be we use a tool called 10 frames, which is just a 2 by 5 grid. And it's on a piece of cloth, and we're using natural materials. And you use this to help with counting and what's called subitizing, which is looking at a quantity and knowing how much it is. That's when we look at a die and we say, oh, that's 4. And we don't have to,
Yeah.
kids that don't have that look at a die and go 1, 2, 3,
Mhm.
4 every single
Single
time.
time. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really important skill, and we use it all the way up to fractions and multiplication. And so we really want to make sure that we're growing that foundation. And it's all about that kind of thing. And you're using the natural environment, the materials to help provide context and materials and content to just practice those math skills just like you might in a more traditional way. And same thing with reading. So we're really down on the context. So we might be using signs outside in the neighborhood to look for blends. I do a lot with nature journaling and teaching phonics. So I often use this example of if you're teaching double E, the vowel team double E, like it says E, you might be talking about a tree and like focusing on a tree and then writing the word tree and other words that have EE and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
reading about trees that week, etc.
Beautiful. So would you say that when you're doing wild reading, that it follows a thematic sort of thing?
So it depends on the level.
Okay.
Because of my special ed background
Mhm.
and with my child with dyslexia, I really do recommend that you follow a scope and sequence of phonics and that you're hitting major skills like phonemic awareness and all of that. And it is best to go in a sequence. And so it's not really thematic. The first level has a long story that each week sets tone. And so it's about a Matilda the mouse, and she goes on this trek. And every week she focuses on a little bit of a different letter. It's not like you're supposed to already know your letters, but
Uh-huh.
that is the theme for the week. And then Wild Reading 2 is a little bit different. It really ups the ante a little bit. We're doing like vowel teams, for example, and R controlled vowels like AR.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have the story, and it's more a little bit, it has like nature-based readers and books and then outdoor activities you can do along with it. Yeah.
I love this so much. There's so much goodness here. Hey there, homeschool parents. If you're looking for personalized support to help your child be successful in what they specifically need and want to do to occupy their time, see that word occupation in there? You are in the right place. That is the mission of Homeschool OT. Parents just like you asked for this, one-on-one support, a chance to get real answers through face-to-face Q&A sessions. It's a way to cut through the noise of the internet and get direct, personalized guidance that you can trust. With practical advice and one-on-one support, you'll have the tools and confidence for your homeschool journey. We know the busyness of homeschool families, so you can book 1, 4, 12, 24, whatever. It's on demand. So if you're ready to get started, visit homeschoolot.com/services to book your sessions. Now, back to the show. All right, Rachel, so tell us, what are some of the advantages of just of being outdoors and the outdoor learning environment as a whole?
Yeah, there's so many, and I hope I can remember enough of them. So in terms of OT and sensory, when we walk outside, it's already a multisensory environment. So we have the wind, we have the sun, we have smells, we have the ground underneath our feet. It's often uneven. So we're just getting a lot more input than we would be indoors, and that can be good or bad depending on the child. And you're also getting, we know it's also in the literature of like research literature that it increases intention,
Mhm.
increases engagement in whatever you're learning, which is awesome.
Yeah,
If you're allowing kids to play and take risks, then you're going to be supporting their executive functioning.
you're speaking
They're
my
looking
languages.
where their boundaries and their body is, and they're trying things out and they're experimenting in making decisions and managing themselves when they're climbing a tree. How does that feel?
Mhm.
Feeling good up there? Or do you think you should come down a little? And understanding your own limits.
I
So,
love how you mentioned, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
yeah,
interrupt,
that's
but
all right.
I love how you mentioned asking that question, how you're like,
Yeah,
oh, how do you feel up there? Do you feel okay? Or would you like to come down? Because you're right, you're encouraging them to do that assessment and then to make a decision themselves and think about it. Think flexibly. Should evaluation, should I move down? Let's think safety wise. And oh, yep, so much better than be careful, which
yes, yeah.
thanks.
Takes a little bit training on our part. Yeah, and then there's also lots of health benefits. Kids get sick less in outdoor schools, and you get the vitamin D, and it also helps their vision and balance and all of those things, gross motor, all of it.
Talk
There's
about
so much.
that vision piece a little bit. And there, I do have a podcast in the past, guys, that I'll make sure that I link here. I have two actually that were all on visual system, but talk about how does it improve your vision, like outside?
Yeah, in two ways. One, you're getting a full spectrum of light in your eyes, and that really helps develop your vision. I'm not a vision expert, but I know that that is really great for your vision. And the farther away you look, the more often there's a reason why most of us wear glasses,
Wearing
because we
glasses
do
right
not.
now.
I wear glasses because now I'm old, but you need to look far and you need to develop that far vision. And the only way to do it is to look. And so if we're constantly looking at a screen or looking really close, we lose that. We lose those muscles. And when we go outside, we get all of that light and we're looking far. So it's it's real. It's not
Yeah.
myth.
Yeah. And even the visual scanning, when you're scanning something that's close by, so reading a book, obviously,
Yeah.
your muscles don't have to go nearly as far as like when you're scanning, follow that bird. You have to look really far across it's not just your screen, across the world to
Yeah.
be able to see and follow that. So your muscles around the eyes are getting a lot stronger. Ooh, so good. So, would you talk about getting a little bit older with your kids? So, did you continue learning through outdoor or were they coming? Does it transfer to inside? I think that's a question that a lot of parents ask is how does
Yeah.
this transfer from outside to someday you got to read a book and someday you have to write on a paper? How does
Yeah,
that work?
well, there's plenty of writing. We do lots of writing with
Mhm.
chalk and on chalkboards, and it doesn't mean in on clipboards. We bring paper out and we write on paper outside. But yeah, no, so the math goes up to fifth grade, and there's lots of like board games and things that you can do and read alouds that can be done inside. Doesn't always have to be. As they do get older, the amount of content and skills goes up. And yes, often you aren't doing everything outside like you can so easily. I do hit every single math skill that's typically covered in your state or province. And so outside, so it can be
Yeah.
done, but I often integrate. And as my boys got older, I definitely did. It wasn't all outside. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. They get older, they get into more stuff. You're going to this reading group at the library and you're going to co-op and you're taking this program. And my kids
Yes.
were also in a lot of outdoor programs. So yeah, so they weren't necessarily just always at home being.
Now, were you an outdoor person yourself before, or is this something that developed for your children. And what do you say to the parent who's, yeah, outdoors is not my jam, but yes, I see my kid needs this? Like, how have you convinced yourself over time, this is the way
Yeah,
we're going to do this?
two things. So, yes, I'm not like one of those like super outdoorsy people. I love the outdoors. I love nature. I grew up rurally, and so I really like that kind of. I chose to live in a log house in the woods for many years.
That's amazing.
We just moved for schools, but yeah, that's my happy place is just to go for a
Okay.
walk to work. I'm not like a hike up a mountain person. Have some, I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I can't always do all the things I might want to
Yeah.
do. But yeah, so I enjoy being out. But what really makes a difference, and I do talk about this in the introductions, is that you need gear for yourself. And we suit up our kids in the most greatest rain gear and long underwear and all this great quality gloves. Like my kids were decked out when they went to Forest Preschool, but I didn't go to Forest Preschool and they'd invite us. And then I'm freezing. I live in upstate New York. We get like 80 inches of snow a year. It is cold here,
Yeah.
but it was because I didn't have the gear. The best thing about buying gear for ourselves is we're not growing. So my boots will fit for many years. My
True.
bra will
Right.
fit for many years. My long underwear will last. And so it's an investment, but it does make it more enjoyable and dress for the weather, for sure.
And what about for the kiddo who might be like, sure, I'll go outside in the spring and really does benefit? Like we can tell that being outside is a way better situation, but like winter, summer, the bugs are coming out. We've got some fears there and they're just like, no, not a chance. So like we know as a parent that this is a better situation, but there's a lot of fear going in there. How do you help work kids through that?
With fear, you can do a lot of things like read alouds and going out negotiating. Let's go out for a little while. You can dress for bugs, can wear some natural bug repellent. They have hats with stuff over it. But if it's like fear, like sometimes kids are fearful of snakes or something,
Mhm.
and you can talk about that with them, and you can read about books and other kids that might be afraid of snakes, and you can go visit snakes, maybe in a more safe, like in a zoo. Our
Yeah.
science center has behind
Yeah.
glass, and so you can dip your
Ease
toe
into that.
and ease into it, and you don't have to force it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you can find ways that are more enjoyable. We did a lot of schooling out on our deck.
Yeah.
We would just play a board game out there or
Mhm.
go to a place that's semi-outdoors or you just go for a little while. You can also work up to it and build
Mhm.
up your tolerance. And if you go out, even when it's really cold, you can you build a tolerance. So if it's like the first day it's 15 degrees, you're freezing. But if it's like you've been out and it's been 30, then it's 10, then it's 20, you build up a tolerance. It's why
Yeah.
the first day of warm spring and it's 55 and you're like, it's so
I
warm.
know. You're like out in shorts and like in the middle of the
That
summer,
was
you'd be like, "Ooh."
55 in the
Yeah.
summer, you'd be like, where's my parka?
Yeah.
As you
Right.
build up a tolerance and your body acclimates. Kids need that too, but they might not know that. So you just have to be like, let's go out for 10 minutes. Even 10 minutes makes a difference. Even just going out and doing the exact same workbook page outside, they have proven that it provides a whole bunch of benefits just by doing the same thing. And then it
In the
actually transfers when you go back inside. It's a win-win. So even if you can get out for a little bit.
Yeah, we used to do our morning snacks would be outside. My boys have always, they eat continuously. This is 11 Z's. We're all about all of that here. But so we would do like a morning snack outside for when they needed that. And so it was just like a short amount of time, even in the middle of the cold winter. Here we go. And then we'll come back in. Oh goodness, Rachel, so helpful. And I think this was so great for to really hear other families who have gone through the sensory seeking type thing and your solution for your family, for your son to be able to participate in what he needed and wanted now has benefited so many other people. Like, what an amazing story. Does he know that? How he has influenced so many
Think
others?
so. I don't think
Oh,
so.
tell him to listen to this podcast. We'll tell him.
Yeah, no, I don't think he was pretty young when I was writing
Yeah.
it. He knows I'm pretty well known and
Yeah.
I travel and I do a lot of speaking things, and of course the book,
Yeah.
but because that was not too long ago. But yeah, I don't think you really know.
Oh, you heard it here first. Come and listen. And tell us a little, what is your book and where can we find you?
Sure. So my book is called Wild Learning: Practical Ideas to Bring Teaching Outdoors, and that book has math and reading and writing in it. It is written a little bit more of a lens for teachers or people working with groups. So a lot of people like co-ops often use it. You can absolutely use it as a homeschooler. The curriculum were originally written for homeschoolers, so they have more of that homeschool lens. And you can find Wild Math, K-5, and Wild Reading, which is more like K2, and some unit studies, all on my website, discoverwildlearning.com. And I post frequently with lots of I hate Instagram and Facebook. Is that a thing?
Girl, I'm with you. Yeah, same.
But since I have to be on it, I try to
Yep.
be cool. So I post lots of little videos and interesting books and activities and how to teach various math skills or readings, etc.
And that's Wild Learning on Instagram?
That is Discover Wild Learning.
Discover Wild Learning. Okay. All right. And we will make sure that all those are linked in the show notes as well. So Rachel, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise and all of your beautiful resources to our community. It's just, they're so great. So great.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I agree. Hey there, OTs and listeners. You guys, do you want to help kids develop stronger thinking and writing skills because you know that they are very linked? Well, we have just the thing for you. Our latest handout, which is Narration, A Path to Thoughtful Learning, dives into Charlotte Mason and Karen Glass's timeless approach to narration, a powerful method where kids retell what they've learned in their very own words. It's not just about memory, but it's about connecting ideas and building communication skills that lead to better writing. You'll get practical steps to guide children from oral narration to written expression, plus a special nod to Julie Bogart's Jot It Down program, who happens to be an OT as in guest on episode 56. This all helps you to capture the ideas while kids find their voice. So if you're ready to empower your young learners, download your copy today and help kids turn their thoughts into words. You can find it at homeschoolot.com in the shop. You guys, it's not lost on me that you could be spending your time anywhere. So thank you for being here with me for the OT is In podcast.